Welcome back to another episode of America's Real Estate Show. We are so excited that you are here with us today. I'm Asley, your host. If you're brand new with us, welcome. We are here every single Friday, 11 a.m. Central, right here in fabulous Chicago. Yes! And we are bringing you the best of the best real estate agents from across the nation right to the stage. They are so excited to share their secrets to success to help you accelerate your success. And today we have an amazing guest with us today. We are going to dive into everything listings, and I want you to give the biggest round of applause to Kyle Jefferson, all the way from Houston, Texas. DJ, give us some beats and let's get this party started.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being with us, Kyle. All right, let's go. Okay, so before we dive in and get started, I do want to remind everybody, and our live stream audience will be seeing this in just a minute, take this QR code and scan it for questions. We are going to have a Q&A session afterwards, and we would love to hear your questions. So don't wait till the end. Just pour them in during the episode, and we will get to them during our Q&A. And if for some reason that QR code does not work, there's a phone number that you can use, and we want you to text in your questions. So Kyle, we are so thrilled to have you with us today. 1,000 listings and counting. This man knows what he is talking about. Yes, that's right. Yes. You can give it up. You can give it up for that.
Yes.
So Kyle, before we dive into today's training, I always believe that there is an untold story behind the story. So I want to take us back just a little bit,
okay.
Right? You always had this entrepreneurial spirit within you. So I want us to go back to that place, and I want you to describe for everybody where that started. And I have a feeling from talking to you that there are some peppermint candies involved in this story. So I'd love to turn it over to you and have you share.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me here with you guys. I'm so excited to be before you guys, and so I don't take this opportunity lightly. But yes, so as my dad would say it, back in church, we grew up in the church. My dad was deacon, my mom was church secretary. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, so I spent a lot of time there at church, and I believe that there were free peppermints. Now, I don't know where the free peppermints came from, probably my mom's office, but as my dad would tell it, I used to sell the peppermints. And then kind of moving on along forward in terms of entrepreneurship, back when we were in elementary school, you know, once you get to the last day of school around that time, you know, the kids kind of go wild, and water guns were a big deal, okay? And so I found a way to get water guns at a cheap price, and they sold for a premium at school. And so that is where the entrepreneurial spirit, I think, comes from.
So then we fast forward just a little bit. Now we're in college. We're about our junior year in college, and you have this pivotal moment, and I'm going to say a pivotal conversation with your dad that really puts you on a different path. So let's share a little bit about that story.
And at that point, I was in college, going to school, and I graduated from the University of Houston. And my dad thought it'd be a good idea for me to be in real estate. I guess he kind of watched me as I've grown right through the years, and you know I've done the big box retailers, and so I cut my teeth on the aisles of selling warranties to people that probably never used them. But he had a conversation with my pastor at the time, and my pastor had a real estate company, and my dad thought it would be a good idea for us to meet. We met at a barbecue place. I don't even think the barbecue place is still around. It was Country Line Barbecue or something like that. I don't even remember if it was good or not. But at any rate, we had a meeting, and the next thing I know, I was doing real estate classes. And back then, you know, like I said, I was in college, but we were kind of in that summer break. I got my real estate license in about 3 weeks. I went every day for about 2.5 to 3 weeks straight, just to kind of go ahead and get it knocked off, and probably the best decision I've ever made. It's hard to believe that that was 19 years ago. I know I don't look like I've been around that long, but yeah, that was 19 years ago.
Then another pivotal moment happens, and you meet Jessica. Jessica, who is now your wife, and she's here with us today, the lovely Jessica. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah.
So you meet Jessica, and something fun happens. She ends up moving out of state, and she has this genius idea. Hey, babe, why don't you look into getting a job for an airline? So that you can travel to see me for free. I mean, I'm thinking this is a great idea, right? So tell us a little bit about that, because that launched you into really your corporate career, which you weren't really anticipating, right? Because you were so passionate about real estate and really wanted to be an entrepreneur. So this puts you on a different path. But everything happens for a reason. So let's talk about that.
Everything happens for a reason. And just taking one step back with that, my initial first year of college, I went to Texas State. I think I was talking to a guy here, he's familiar with San Marcos. And I went there my first year in college, and I transferred to University of Houston. But the way that I transferred is that I made a deal with my parents that if they were to buy me a car, I would come back, move back home, and go to University of Houston. And so that's how I ended up at University of Houston. And I met my wife, she wasn't my wife at that point, right? You guys know that. I met Jessica, and right when we started dating, I want to say it was maybe 3 or 4 months later that we started dating, or that she moved away. She moved to Phoenix, Arizona. All right, and so I'm in college, and I'm selling real estate. And so I'm living at home, right? Because my parents bought me a car. I mean, I got a deal of a lifetime that I made. And so everything is rolling. And she says, hey, and we never planned to do long distance, right? I don't even think we were friends. I think we just started dating right away, to be honest with you. So she says, hey, maybe you should look and see if you can work for the airline. And like literally that night, I got online. I looked up, it was Continental at the time. I got online and looked up, and they just so happened to be hiring for agents, reservation agents working from home. And so I was like, hey, would you look at that? I can work from home, I can work part-time, and we can fly for free. And I don't need the money because I'm selling real estate, and I'm in college. I don't have any bills. I live at home, right? So it made all the sense in the world to me, right? And so lo and behold, I ended up signing up, and I had an interview, and I got the job working as a reservation agent from home, part-time.
I love it. I love it. So you're doing that. You're selling real estate. You're in school. I mean, you're doing all the things. And what I love about this part of the story is it leads you right into figuring out, okay, how can I maximize my time to do real estate, right? Because you have all these other things going on. And so you start hanging out in new construction communities. and you come up with this genius plan. So I would love for you to tell everybody how you worked I say it's the Kyle magic, how you worked the Kyle magic in these new construction communities, which then led to another very pivotal moment in your life, because then you meet somebody who really does put you on the course that we're going to start talking about. So let's dive into that.
Absolutely. So what I used to do, so the good thing about me working in corporate America, and part of that story is I actually worked as a reservation agent part-time for 6 months. Some kind of way, I ended up in management. I don't know how it happened, but I ended up in management. And so, which means I was no longer working part-time at home. I was going downtown, and working in that arena. But what happened was that actually became my largest base of clients working in corporate America. And so what I started to do was on weekends, I would go to new home communities, okay? And what I would call it is hunting. I would go hunt. And what that looked like was going to new home communities. Obviously, at new home communities, they would have a main model home where the salesperson would be for a particular builder. And then from there, they would have 2 or 3 other homes where they were basically unoccupied, so to speak. And you can just kind of walk through. And so on the weekends, I would go and just kind of hang out for about 45 minutes, an hour or so. And I would just kind of meander around, trying not to be weird or creepy, right? And what I would do is I would catch people in the kitchen. I just kind of wait and just kind of throw something out to start a conversation. But I've always found that the kitchen was the easiest place to have a discussion with someone, because it was the easiest place to find something in common, right? And that's one thing that over time I started to learn is, hey, this is actually a valuable way to start conversations. And so I had this one lady, and oh man, I remember like it was yesterday. I just knew I had her. I mean, we must have talked for had to be 35 minutes. I mean, I'm working on her, right? She's telling me everything, and she was in there looking for a home. She wanted to purchase a home at about $750,000. She had a house to sell. She was getting ready to get married, and the fiance had a house to sell. I'm like, oh man, I hit it big, And so we're going through the process, and so I'm about to go in for my close, right? All right, let's exchange information. Let's set up an appointment. And her name was Nicole. And Nicole says to me, she says, I have this real estate agent, and he is amazing. His name is Mark. And I will never use another real estate agent other than Mark Demas. And I was like, huh? Really? You tell me this now is what I'm thinking, right? But this has happened before, right? People say that they have agents, right? And you kind of move on. But in this moment, I never heard anyone speak about a real estate agent the way that she spoke about a real estate agent, right? So I knew there was something more to the story, and I took the hit on the chin, and so I drive home. So obviously that doesn't work, and I'm just thinking like, man, who the heck is this Mark Demas guy? Like, why is she talking about him like this? I gave you 35 minutes of my best, like for real, right? And so I get home, I pull into the garage. I remember it like yesterday. I pull in the garage, and all I could think, Mark Demas, why the heck? Who is this guy? And so I pull in the garage at home, my car, and I Google Mark Demas real estate agent. All right, and so I kind of start scrolling, and I look through his reviews. And I'm like, man, why are these people talking about this guy like this? He's just a real estate agent. He just sells houses. Like, what's so special about him? And I mean, I'm talking about review after review after review, like raving reviews. I don't know if he paid for them or not. Back then, I'm like, man, I gotta see what's going on with this. So I just call him. I literally call him on the spot. I call him on the spot, and I call him, and I'm like, I don't know if he's going to answer. And so he answers. I was like, hey, man, you don't know me, but I just ran into one of your clients. And I've never heard anybody speak about a real estate agent the way that she spoke about you. And I went in and I read some reviews, and I just had to call and say, like, what is it? Like, what are you doing to these people? Like, why do they feel this way about you? Because again, the way that she spoke was so passionate about it. I couldn't shake it. You know, that's why I say I remember it like it was yesterday. And I just had to find what the source of it was, because can I buy it? Like, is it bottled up somewhere where I can go and buy it, I can drink it or do something? And so me and Mark, and we ended up talking for about 30, 35 minutes, like straight out the blue, you know, and we're just talking and conversating. And, you know, at the end of that conversation, he gave me some things that helped him. And he gave me 4 books, 3 or 4 books titles. He's like, hey, man, you know, here's some stuff that I do. You know, I'm big into reading. I'm big into personal development. Here's some books that I've read. You know, maybe you should check these books out. And I said, okay. And I hung up. And I bought the books. I bought all of them. And he didn't know. At that moment, right, at that moment, I went ahead and I bought all of the books, right? And then, so the time goes on. And do you want me to go further?
You read the books.
So Tom.
You read the books.
I've never done this before, guys. So
yeah,
y'all got to be patient with me, right?
You read the books and you call Mark to let him know.
Yeah.
All right.
So
I finished not one but all of the books.
Yeah. So I got all the books, and it took me a little time. And mind you, guys, I'm college educated, right? I'm in college, but I never really read books. You know, I'd never really read them. I mean, I didn't feel like I needed to, but some kind of way, by God's grace, right? I made it through college without really reading books. I do remember reading Old Yeller back in high school. I think that's the only book. But at any rate, so I read all the books, and so time goes by. This is maybe about 6 months, right? And so I read all the books, and I called him, and I said, hey, man, I texted him a picture of all the books. I said, hey, I'm done. I read them all. He was like, oh, really? You know, and so time goes on, and, you know, we conversate every now and then. And, yeah, so that's the story of Nicole and how I come to meet Mark Demas, who's now obviously the president of Realty of America, right? And
right. So, I mean, see, we never know where our journey is going to take us.
Right.
And I had a fantastic conversation with Mark, and I wrote down, he said so many amazing things about you. And one of the things that he said is, I'm so proud of Kyle. Mm-hmm. He's one of the best listing agents in the industry. And he remembers this story like it was yesterday as well. Mm-hmm. And he even shared with me that there came this point in your life, right? It's like the sliding door effect. Like, which way am I going to go? And you had a decision to make. You know, am I going to stay in corporate, or am I going to leave and really pursue my dreams in real estate? And at that time, you were with a brokerage where it was really kind of more of a flat fee brokerage. Yep. And he really kind of gave you this opportunity, like, hey, you can come join my brokerage. And you really had to make that decision, not only to leave corporate America, but am I going to give up being with a flat fee brokerage and join Mark? And so this was another pivotal moment in your path. So let's maybe just kind of fast forward to that and talk about how you decided to take that leap, because then again, that puts you on a completely different trajectory. Mm-hmm. And you become the listing partner behind this billion-dollar operation. So let's dive into that.
Absolutely. And so again, this process is about a year from the time that I initially met him till the time this happened. And what I'll say, guys, is that through this process, you know, I really dove into personal development. And for about 4 months straight, I wrote my goals every day. Every single day, I wrote my goals and what I wanted to achieve. every single day. And truth be told, it was the same thing every single day, right? And so I came aware of the superpower that we all encompass, which is intention, okay? And so let's just say this is November of this year, of that year, and I had a transaction, and Mark was actually the listing agent for the transaction, okay? And so we go through the process. I call Mark, and at this point we had been talking, right? We didn't know each other a ton, but we knew each other from a distance, if that makes sense. We actually hadn't met in person. So, and we're talking, and I say, hey, if I can get this deal closed, you have to give me more books. What was the deal? I say, you gotta find something that's gonna change my life. If I can get this deal closed, you gotta give me something. And he said, agreed. All right. And fortunately, it was a great house. I didn't have to talk my client into it. Obviously, I think they maybe had a multiple offer type of thing, but we ended up making a great offer on the property, and we ended up getting that deal closed. And so we closed that in November, okay? And one of my goals that I wrote down was by January 1, I want to go full time in real estate. Because it was getting to that point to where I had to choose, right? Corporate America is pushing me this way to say, hey, come over here, come do this. But I'm also doing really, really well in real estate. I think my last year in corporate, I maybe closed almost about 20 transactions working in corporate, while working a managerial position, managing about 55 women, to be exact, which is crazy, right? I was like, I wouldn't do that again. Just all women, 55 of them. But at any rate, so we go through this transaction. So I go and meet Mark to collect on what he promised me. All right. And so this is in December of that same year, which I believe is 2016. I think it was 2016 is what it was. And so I go meet with him in December. First time, he had just opened his new office. And so we go and we talk. And we go and talk, and he gives me this package with this book in it that he ordered. He says, man, this is a special book. All right. And so we get it. I read the book, and, we talk, and he asked me, hey, so what do you want to do? What's your goals? What's your plans? And we talk about it. And he say, man, if you want, you can come here. And at this point, he doesn't have agents. He has his team, but he has, I think, maybe one independent agent at that point. And so I say, all right, cool. I think about it, right? And so I go and I stew over it, and I talk to my wife about it. And this is what made me go from corporate America to full belief and faith in what was possible. I talked to my wife about it, and she told me, I believe in you more than you believe in yourself. Those were her exact words. And at that moment, it was done. The decision was made. At that moment, I believe in you more than you believe in yourself, right? And so that moment came, and I believe pretty much right away I put in a 2 weeks notice, and by January 6th of 2017, I was starting at Mark Demas Properties. And mind you, the goals that I wrote every day, one of the main goals was by January of the following year, I wanted to be going full-time in real estate. And now I didn't know how it was going to happen, right? I didn't. I didn't know what state or position I was going to be in. I mean, we had just purchased a home. We had a young kid. I don't know if you were pregnant with Grayson at that point, we had 2 kids at that point. Right? And so there was no guarantees, guys. I had no guarantees. I was going just as an independent agent to chase this idea of doing big things, But the belief that came from my wife really pushed me out the door to say, you know what? what's the worst that can happen? Obviously, she's not going to go anywhere, so let's go make it happen. So that's how it happened.
So then you end up about maybe 6 months later becoming the managing broker.
Yep.
And then about 6 months later, so now we're about a year into this.
Yep.
That's when Mark comes to you and gives you this opportunity to become the one and only exclusive listing partner for him, which then becomes behind this $1 billion operation, really. So let's dive into our training, because now you're really going to dive deep and you're going to talk to us all about how you win the listing, which starts.
And one thing I'll add to that, Asley.
Yes, go for
it. So I ended up becoming the managing broker of Mark Davis Properties, and then subsequently the listing partner. But before all of that happened, when I came over, Mark had me take what's called a DISC assessment test, okay? And on my DISC assessment test, and I didn't know anything about the DISC assessment at that point. This is the first I really kind of knew. And my DISC, for those of you guys who know it, I had a high D, a high I, and a high S. My C was way down here, all right? But he had a team, and so one thing is that he saw from that DISC assessment test some things that would be possible to achieve, and so which is very important.
All right, so now I want to take everybody on a journey through your entire listing process, which starts with setting the appointment, because we have to get the appointment if we're even going to give ourselves an opportunity to win the listing. So let's start. You have everything that you do is very systematic. So let's start with that appointment, and let's take them through that process.
Absolutely. And so when we start getting an appointment, right, and that's when we get a phone call, right, whether it's an inbound call, outbound call, the process is pretty much the same. And there are 4 things that I try to find out on every appointment, okay, or when I'm setting every appointment. 1, I want to find out their motivation. Why are they looking to sell the home? What is the reason? And if you can't get the reason, don't hesitate. With the first answer, don't hesitate to do a follow-up question. All right? The next thing that I want to know is what is the timeline that they're looking to sell? Okay? I need to know the timeline, because that's going to tell me, the time of essence with this. The third thing I want to know is what are their post-sale plans? And the reason why I want to know their post-sale plans, because again, that's going to dial into timeline, but also it's going to let me know if there's other opportunities that I need to be prepared to discuss when I get to the table, all right? Because the key is to set yourself up for success. The more you can know before you go in, the better opportunity you're going to have. And then the last thing that I want to know is, and it's a very specific question, okay? Very specific question. And Mark is actually who taught me to ask this question. And so before he released me, I did have to go on listing appointments with him, all right? He didn't just throw me out to the wolves, because I was doing listings, but I wasn't doing them at the rate that he was doing. And so he had one very specific question that he would ask, and it would be, what updates have you done to the home that you feel add value? What updates have you done to the home that you feel add value? All right. And this question is what tells me everything I need to know. Okay. Outside of the specifics. And what this question tells me is the personality type that I'm going to be dealing with once I get to the table. Okay. And so, as I mentioned, Mark had me take a DISC assessment. And when you break down the DISC assessment, there is a D, an I, an S, and a C, okay? And this DISC assessment was actually first brought to life back in 1928 by a psychologist named Dr. William Morstan, okay? And so it's crazy. We're in, 2025? And this came about in 1928, okay? And what this DISC assessment does is it tells you the dominant emotions that control the behavior, right? And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to position myself to understand how I need to best communicate with the person on the other side to give myself the best chance to win this listing, okay? And so when we get into asking this question, and if I just told you that the whole process about the DISC is about understanding the dominant emotions that control the behavior, in this question, the key word is feel, right? Feel is a major emotion. And so when you deal with these sellers, each seller with a dominant type, DISC, will answer this question very differently, okay? And so at this point, so for instance, I asked the question, so what updates have you done to the home that you feel add value? If it's a D personality type, which is someone that is dominant, all right? The person that is dominant, they only care about results. That's it. I don't care what you got to do to get there. Just get me the results. You don't even have to tell me anything other than, hey, that you can do it, all right? And so a response to that question would be, I asked the question, hey, what updates have you done that you feel add value? If they respond to me and say, we may have done a roof, but it doesn't matter. You can see when you get here. I already know when I get to the appointment, it's not so much about the details. It's about the confidence that I have with what I say, and do they feel that I can get the job done? It's very specific, all right? If I have someone that answers that question as an I, right? A person that's an I, they are about influence. They're very sociable, all right? What I know, if I go into a meeting with an I, I'll probably be there for a while because they love to talk, all right? They love to talk. And so a person that is an I, in terms of this, the way that they would answer that question is, they'll say, well, you know, man, we've done a lot of stuff. I love this house. This is an amazing house. My wife picked out all the tile in the restroom. I picked out all the granite countertops in the kitchen that we remodeled, all right? And then out back, we have a nice fire pit with a covered patio. It was done maybe 2 years ago. And so the person that answers a question like that with enthusiasm and excitement, but they also talk about their personal feelings and things like that, again, I know, all right, this is an I personality. So what I'm going to have to do is, one, I'm going to have to be able to listen, but I'm also going to have to be able to mirror them, right? They're going to have to get to know a little bit about me. They are very big on collaboration. We can do this together, okay? And so I know when I'm going through this process, hey, I got to know I'm set up, that I'm going to have to listen, but I'm also have to share a little bit more about myself to make sure they understand that we're on the same team, okay? If the person that's on the other side of the phone is S, S is for steadiness, okay? The person with the S emotion personality type, what they're going to do is they're going to be cautious, all right? They're going to be cautious. They want to make sure that they're making the right decision, okay? And so the person that is an S personality type, what they'll tend to do is they'll say, hey, well, what do you think, what would you actually consider updates? I mean, I changed out the carpet to wood floors. You know, we did some paint on the wall, but does that really add value? Because they're unsure, but they're also cautious. They don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to say the wrong thing, right? And so I know with that particular personality type, how I'm going to have to present to that person. They're going to have to trust me. I'm going to have to win them over through trust and expertise to make sure they understand that, hey, I'm here to guide you. I'm here to lead you. All right? That's the person with the S personality type. All right? Then, lastly, we got our C's. All right? Our C's are very conscientious. All right? The C's are very compliant. The C's personality type, they need to know every single detail. They want to know what kind of car you're going to pull up in, how many times you're going to knock at the door before you come in. No, I'm just joking. But no, they do want to know everything. They are very detail-oriented. These are the people who love to see bullet points, all right? They love to see bullet points. And so the person who gets that question that is a C, the way that they would respond to the question of what updates have you done that you feel add value, they would say, okay, let me get my spreadsheet. All right. In 1999, we replaced the roof. In 2000, we took the carpet out of the third bedroom upstairs because the cat peed in it, and so we had to replace it. All right. And then in 2005, we did the kitchen countertops. All right. So now I know if I'm going in with someone who has a dominant C personality, that I really have to take my time and I need to go through the information so that they can follow along. Now, my question is, how many of you guys found yourself into these different little categories, right? And the fact of the matter is that no one is the same, right? You may have groups of people that are the same, but I would imagine everybody on the row is probably going to have a different personality type, which means that you will respond differently to the way that you're communicated to. And so that is the importance of kind of really understanding how this puts you in the driver's seat to be able to communicate effectively to win in the end. All right. And so those 4 questions, motivation is the first question. Why are you looking at selling the house? Okay. Next is timeline. How soon are you looking to get your home on the market? Third, what are your post-sale plans? And then fourth, the most important question, right, is what updates have you done that you feel add value to your home? All right. And now once I got all of that information, and obviously if they answer all those questions, they're definitely going to set the appointment, right? That's a lot to kind of go through. But I do this process every single time because it allows me to be better prepared to do what I'm there to do. All right?
All right, so now we know the type of person that we're going to be setting our appointment with. So let's take everybody through your actual preparation for the appointment, because again, you have a very specific process that you go through. So let's take them through each of the steps, and I wrote down you have about 5 of them.
Yep. So the steps for the process to prepare. Obviously, we're going to run comps. Right? Everybody understands how to run comps. And then we also are going to make sure we confirm the appointment the day. I usually confirm it the day of. If it's an early morning appointment, I'll confirm it the day before. And I have a very specific way in the way in which I confirm an appointment. And the way I do that is I just literally send a text message to them to say, hey, I'm looking forward to meeting with you guys today or in the morning. I will be there at such and such. Looking forward to it. All right. And the reason why I confirm my appointments like that is I don't want to give them the opportunity to say, you know what, this doesn't work. Right? Because if I just say, hey, we have an appointment set for tomorrow, is it still good for you? Yeah, and when you didn't go to the grocery store, you need to go to the grocery store, and maybe this is a great time to opt out of this and get to the grocery store, right? And so I try to not give them an opportunity to cancel that appointment, all right? And so then what we do on the day of the appointment, I try to show up at least 45 minutes early, okay? And the reason why I'm trying to show up at least 45 minutes early is because what I'm wanting to do is get there early and walk through at least 2 listings that are in my comparables. Walk through at least 2 listings that are in my comparables. And the reason why is it's one thing to tell the person, hey, these are the comps that's in your neighborhood. Look at the pictures. You are in a whole different ballgame if you sit and say, hey, I've actually walked through this house. And I think that the reason that this house is on the market is because the floor plan doesn't flow very well. However, your floor plan flows a lot differently, and this is why. This is one of the things that I noticed while I was in this particular house, right? You're immediately going to separate yourself from anybody else that comes behind or before you. Just from that simple fact of showing up a little bit earlier and going a little bit further and a little bit deeper in this process, right? And so, because again, all we're doing is setting ourselves up to be successful, right? Taking these little bitty things here and there, and this is where the difference comes in because, like I tell people all the time, the information is the same. There's only one way to look at the pictures, right? We do our marketing the way that we do our marketing. But how you communicate and where you separate is what makes the difference for us. And so then, obviously, we show up on time. And once I get there, there's a couple different things that I do, okay? The first thing that I do, especially in today's age where everyone has Ring cameras, right? Everybody kind of knows what's going on. I get out of the car and I kind of walk up and down the street, maybe about one house over, two houses over, and I kind of look around at all the houses that are around, all right? And the reason why I do this is because many times the sellers are waiting for me at the window or the door. Many times. I've seen it many times. And so what I'm doing at that point is these sellers are watching me, in a sense, take action in terms of looking at what's around them, because when I go to the kitchen table, all right, I want to be able to sit and I want to talk to them and say, hey, yeah, I noticed your neighbor XYZ, and I noticed your neighbor had this going on, but I think one of the advantages that you have is your curb appeal. Or it gives me the opportunity to say, hey, this is one of the ways that you can make your house stand out from your neighbors, because I've looked at the other neighbors' homes. And then as I proceed up to the front door, I always stop and I envision where I want my sign. Always. I always stop and I envision, where do I want my sign? Why am I doing that? I'm already putting myself in the winner's seat. Visualization. I'm already putting myself in the winner's seat, right? And so I've already picked out the spot. Just sign here. We don't even do it. Just sign. I've already picked it out. It's the perfect spot, right? And so, and again, a lot of this is just this mental. You're setting yourself up for success. And so that's what I learned over time. How do you set yourself up to win? Because we all want to win. Does anybody want to lose? It doesn't feel good, right? And I don't get them all. But again, I always stop before I get to the door and I visualize where I want the sign to go. And I do this on every single listing appointment that I go on.
All right, so now we're there. We're at the appointment. And again, you have a very specific process that you follow.
Yes.
Starting with the tour.
Yes.
So let's walk everyone through your process when you're actually at your appointment, starting with the tour.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and for a while, guys, I didn't realize, that, man, this is like a real system that I have. But I've done it so much. And so when I walk into the house, and very specifically, and this is something I learned, this will really help you guys at open houses too. When I walk into a home, if I see any carpet in the house, I always stop and I ask them, would you guys like for me to remove my shoes? And the reason why I ask that, and probably 80% of the time they say yes, or they say no. 20% of the time they say yes. But again, the reason why I ask that is because most of the time they say no, and I say, well, look, I always wear matching socks just in case. And listen, what happened? You guys laugh, right? And so laughter is a bonding moment, right? If I can get you to laugh early in the process, your anxiety or tension goes from here to here almost immediately. All right, you see how that worked? I said it and you laughed. It's like a joke, right? And so I always do that. And then I ask them, can they please take me on the tour? Because sometimes sellers will try to take you to the couch. And they think, hey, let's just sit here and let's talk. I won't ever go through a listing without going through a tour of the house first, okay? And it's very specific. And so the reason why I want to go on a tour of the house is when I'm going through the tour, obviously I'm looking at the home, all right? But we have to remember, this is their home. It's different than a house. There is a difference, right? If I were to go into anybody's home today, you're going to have pictures up. You're going to have the things, the moments that you're most proud of, right? You're going to have, if you went to college at a certain place, you're going to have either a college flag, a college hat. You're going to have something up that's important to you. If you served in the military, you're going to have something up saying you served in the military. And so what I want to do, when I walk through that house, I'm trying to identify anything that I can see that's important to them. If they went to LSU, I know I have to find a way to talk about LSU. All right, if they served in the military, I know I have to make it a point to thank them for their service, right? Because what I want to do is familiarity is the quickest way to build a bridge of trust. If there's something that we can discuss that we may have in common or something, it's the quickest way for me to get from here to here in terms of a bridge of trust. And so that's one of my purposes that I have when I'm making them go through the tour. Now also, as long as there's seats there and a table, when I'm going through the tour, again, in the kitchen, I'll usually drop my backpack off at the kitchen table. And I ask them, hey, you guys mind if I sit my backpack here? Because what that does is it keeps me off the couch. I need to get to the kitchen table. The kitchen table is where the magic happens, okay? And so I'll usually sit my bag down and then we'll continue on the tour. And so again, it's a very specific process that I take because again, I'm looking for opportunities. I'm looking for opportunities to say, hey, what is something that we can have in common, or what is something I can identify that's important to them?
And then we end up at the magic kitchen table.
Yes.
So let's talk about the magic that happens there.
Yes, so once we get to the kitchen table, we used to take this packet. I'm sure Mark still does the packet. We used to take this packet. I have a very similar packet, but what I've started doing with COVID, I actually started doing them on my computer. And I've actually found it to work really well by doing these presentations on my computer. And so I have a process, while my computer is loading, I usually ask them 2 questions, okay? The first question that I ask while this process is going on, I say, hey, I try to understand if they've sold a house before, all right? But the first question I ask is, hey, while this is loading up, what's important to you guys about this process? What is important to you guys about this process? Okay? And the reason why I want to know that is I just want to know what I got to say to get the listing signed. You're going to tell me, if you tell me that it's important that your house lists on Wednesday, for whatever reason, guess what day I'm going to say your house is going on the market? Right? I'm going to tell you it's Wednesday. And we're going to make it happen, right? And so I'm going to ask them what's important to them about this process. Because everybody reads and everybody Googles and they say, well, you got to interview 3 agents. You got to do this. And then the second question that I ask, and this is a very important question, is what's important about the agent that you choose to help you with the sale of this home? What's important about the agent that you choose to help you with the sale of this home? All right? And again, why am I asking that question? Because I'm trying to find out what agent I need to be today. Right? What I got to do? What I got to do? Who do I have to be today to make this happen? Because again, guys, I want to win. I'm there to win, right? Every transaction I get is a branch. It's a branch that grows into more, right? So I'm there to win, but I'm also there to serve, right? So I'm really trying to find out how can I best serve you with helping you sell your home, right? And so once I get those 2 questions answered, now it's time for me to do what I'm there to do, because I already know how I need to communicate, right? Because I did that up front. I already understand their motivation. I know how soon they need to be on the market, but most importantly, I know how I need to communicate the information that I have, okay? And so then quickly, we talk about our reviews. And I always ask people, very specifically, I say, hey, had you had a chance to take a look at any of our reviews? And they say either most of the time they say yes, or they say no. And if they say no, I just say, hey, I always like to encourage anyone who's considering using us to take a look at our reviews. I've been doing this a long time, and obviously what I say is going to sound like it makes sense, but it's always different to get it from a third-party perspective that's not here with us today. So I'll always try to encourage them to take a look at our reviews. Then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go into a handout, which you guys have, and this is literally the handout that I use, that I go through, all right? And this is what I would say more important than almost anything in our listing presentation, okay? And we get right into how do we determine value, because that's ultimately what I'm there for. They want to know, well, how much can I sell my house for, right? And so this particular document is so important is because it allows me to set the right expectations, all right? But also, because this document is so important, I also have to make sure I communicate in an effective way that they're going to get, they're going to get what I'm saying to them, right? And so first we talk about location. And, how does location impact the sale of a home? And that allows me the opportunity, because remember, when I got there, I looked around the neighbors' houses, right? At that point, I've identified if they back up to a cell phone tower. I've identified if they back up to a major freeway. I've identified if there's anything that's external that impacts them. So this is where I get to discuss anything that could be an issue from a locational standpoint, okay? We also kind of get to talk about how we run our comps. Are there any benefits to the location? So it allows us to discuss advantages or disadvantages to their location. I get to tell them right in that moment. All right, then we get to talk about competition. From a competition standpoint, if they're trying to sell a recently built home in a new construction community, we all know that's going to be a challenge, right? Why? Because new construction builders are offering incentives, they're offering interest rate buy down, they're offering all kind of things. So this allows me to dig into that and set that expectation from a competition standpoint. All right, then we talk about timing. This is very important, guys, right? We have to be able to let the seller know what the market is like. If we know that homes are taking longer to sell, this is the time to let them know that. Hey, the market we're in is being impacted by interest rates. Interest rates are causing buyers to be more specific about the decision they make, which means they're taking longer to make the decision, which means that there's more competition on the market, right? And so we talk about the timing of the specific market right now, okay? Then the two most important things, right? Because location, competition, and timing, it's already defined. We can't do a thing about it. Can we change where the home is located? No. Can we change the competition that you're up against? No. Can we change the time of the market that we're in? I've already understood your motivation, right? I understand that you have to sell this home and this is the market we're selling it at. But the only two things we can control is condition and price. That's it. Condition and price. And so this is where I have to really lay it on heavy in terms of if there's conditional items that impact the house. All right, this is where I have to be really specific. All right, but also at the same time, if there are conditional items that are an advantage, I need to really pull those things out. All right, especially if I'm dealing with someone who has an I personality, who loves to talk, or someone who has a S personality who's kind of unsure, and so I have to reassure them about the things that they need to do. And then if I have a C, I kind of have to go through and line item the things that are advantages or disadvantages. Now, if it's a D personality, I just have to tell them, hey man, your house is great. I know we'll be able to sell it. And I'm done. Or, hey man, you guys need to do some paint in here. Because paint is going to be the biggest bang for your buck that you can get. And I need to get on to the next part of the process. And then ultimately we get to price. All right? What we know is if a home doesn't sell, it's only for two reasons, correct? It's either condition or price. And to be honest with you, it's always price, right? It's always price, right? And so this is where it allows me to kind of break down what that looks like, right? From a difference between condition and price. And then on price, it's like, look, if we're on the market any length of time beyond what's considered normal or average for the community, your issue is price. It's point blank, period. All right? And so then we move forward through the next part of the process.
So before you actually get, because there is kind of this magical part of your presentation as well, when you start talking about price, you like to ask them a very specific question. I think it would be great for the agents to know because, again, you're leading them down a certain path that you want to take them. So let's dive into that a little bit.
First of all, who all knew selling houses was psychological? Did y'all know this? when you get into it, and when you've had the opportunity to sit at as many kitchen tables as I have, you realize how different we are, but how much alike we are, right? And where the differences come in is how we receive information. The information is the same, but we're different in how we receive information, right? And so, as you guys can see, this entire time, all I'm doing is positioning. Like, how do I communicate the most effective way to this particular seller? And so we go through the comps. Everybody knows we're real estate agents. We know how to go through the comps. And what I generally do, once I get to the end of the comps, if they haven't told me already, I'll ask them, all right, now, based on everything we've saw in terms of the comparable properties, did you guys have a price in mind? And, part of that is a negotiation tactic. I'm sure we've all heard, he who speaks first loses, right? And so I'm really trying to what I'm really doing is trying to get an understanding or a sense of where they're at, because we've all been in situations where, the comps are telling us the price is $450,000, but the seller is thinking I should be able to sell my house for $625,000. And beyond a shadow of a doubt, that's just not going to happen, right? And so the reason why I ask this question is because I want to know what I'm about to get myself into. And generally, I already have my numbers done, all right? But I always ask them that question just to see what they say. If it's a D personality, they're going to give me a number. They're going to give me a number because they've already had it figured out. They had it figured out 6 months ago, right? If it's an S, they're going to kind of want to work together to come to the number. Everyone else, I kind of have to lead, right? But the D is going to absolutely give me a number. But I ask that question specifically so that I can understand if we're going to be seeing eye to eye or if I'm going to have to work them up to kind of see my perspective of what that number should be when it comes to a list price.
And you always have a range?
Yep. Yep, I always have a range, and that's one of the reasons why I go in with a range, because sometimes, I try not to take overpriced listings, all right? I try not to take overpriced listings. Will I take an overpriced listing? Yes, but only through transparency. And what I mean by that is, look, this is what I think we should list this property at. However, if this is a price that you want to try it at, we can try it, but if the market tells us something different, are you open to making an adjustment to the price? If the answer to that question is yes, and what they think is within reason, we can move forward and make it happen. Okay?
All right, so now we've established price range. We've come to some type of an agreement. And this is a very important part of leading up to your close. And this is like magic sheet number 2, I call it. And this is where we're really going to dive into explaining the market. Yep. So let's talk about that.
Absolutely. So I think you guys have a copy of that, or it's on the back side of the sheet that you guys looked at. And so there are 2 graphs, all right?
Sorry, Kyle. Before you jump into that, I just want to let our virtual audience know all of this is going to be available, so hopefully you're seeing a slide, or we're definitely going to make this information available to you. So just follow along with us and just listen to everything Kyle is sharing with us today.
Okay, and so there's 2 graphs, okay? And these 2 graphs really help set the expectations. And the first graph is a pyramid, all right? And so now we've already established price. We've already established price, so now we need to make sure that they understand what to expect once we go on the market, all right? And so the first tier of that pyramid, the small part of the pyramid, what we're looking at is this is the amount of showings you get. If you're getting 1 to 2 buyers out of every 10 potential buyers in a week, that's not enough to sell the house. This is how we know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the house is overpriced, all right? Because again, guys, what I'm preparing them for is not Kyle that's not selling the house. It's the market response. And based on these market responses, this is what you can expect, right? So we're only getting 1 to 2 buyers a week. And now at the bottom side of this is the widest range. That's when you're getting between 7 to 10 buyers a week. Now what that's telling us is that, hey, the market looks at our home favorably, they actually kind of think we're a deal, all right? This means that it's possible that we underprice the home, but it's almost impossible to underprice it because what happens is competition happens. You get multiple offers. When you get multiple offers, you push the price up, okay? Because again, we're still setting expectations, but right in the middle is where we want to be. That's telling us we're getting about 3 to 5 showings a week. That's a healthy amount of showings to be getting on a property, okay? And so what I tell them is say, hey, if we're getting this amount of showings, that means that the market is looking at us favorably, because the process is you go online, you look at the photos, you make a decision on whether you want to go out and look at it or not. If we got 5 people in a week saying, hey, I want to come out and look at it, that means they're looking at us favorably, okay? Now, what happens is if we're on the market 30 days and we're getting 3 to 5 showings a week, let's just take it in another 4, that means 16 people will come through your home in a month's time. Now, if we have 16 people come through the home in a month's time, but nobody purchases the home, guess what your issue is? It's condition. It's condition. Because they know the price when they see it online. They see the photos. They read the wonderfully AI-written description, right? And so now, and they make the decision to come out and look at it in person. But what's happening is you had 16 people that have came out, and when they got there, they did not fall in love with it for one reason or another, right? And so now, this is how you know that your issue is condition. But if we're stuck at the top and nobody's coming, that means they're looking at it. I mean, the AI lady didn't do her job, right? Right in the description, but it's priced too high for what we're offering, okay? And so this is why it sets the expectation of what they should prepare for once we're on the market. Again, because Kyle is not the reason that it's not selling, all right? Remember, you wanted to price it at $625. I told you $400, all right? So then what we do is move on to the next graph, which tells us, hey, based on this graph here, after about 3 weeks on the market, the interest in your property starts to wane off. And so what we don't want to do is get too far beyond this 2 to 3 week period without looking at a price adjustment, okay? And so now because I've gone through this, and let's just say I get the listing because I've already envisioned where my sign goes, right? I've already prepared, I've already had the hard conversation. I no longer, once we get into the process, if we have to do a price adjustment, I've already done the hard conversation when there's no anxiety attached to it. I've already prepared you. And so everything I'm doing is positioning myself to be successful, not just getting the listing, but once we have the listing there.
Setting those expectations.
Absolutely.
And you shared with me that that's where you feel a lot of agents really just, get off track is
Yep.
that they don't set those expectations
Yep.
at the very beginning.
Correct.
So you've gone through that process, then you go into your marketing plan, which we don't have time to go through today, but hopefully you'll come back and we can dive into your
When it's warmer.
Right, absolutely. And so now we are to the close, and I call this kind of like the magic question that you put out there. So let's take everybody through your closing process, and really, it's a very simple question.
Yep. And so when it comes time to closing, everybody's seen, not to bring politics into this, but everybody's seen the debates, right? And you get to the end of the debate and each candidate states their case, right? And so I kind of do something similar to that. And this is whether they ask me this question or whether they don't ask me this question. And what I'll tell them is I say, hey, I know you guys probably haven't asked me this yet, but I know a lot of sellers do ask me this. And, they like to know why me? Why would you choose to work with me, right? And my goal here is to really, really pull out one of my strengths because I'm about to ask them for the listing. And so I want to end on a high note. And what works for me, and this may not work for everybody, but the key is to really pull out your strengths, is what I tell them is I say, hey, we've went through a lot of things in this appointment, a lot of things that we can do. And what I want to tell you, first and foremost, and I look them in the eye and I say, we can sell your home. I have no doubts that we can get your home sold. While I would like to say that everything goes perfect, it doesn't always go perfect in real estate. At any time, there's something that can come up on an inspection, on an appraisal, or from title work that we did not foresee. But what I can tell you is with my 19 years of experience, there's not much that I haven't encountered. And so you want someone on your side to be that steady hand that guides the wheel, right? All of you guys are ready to sell your house with me, right? Right? And so that's my strength. My strength is that I will be the steady hand that guides the wheel. You don't have to worry. I have every resource that you need, all right? And so then I move into the close. And so my close is real simple. So are you ready to get me started working with you right now? That's it. Are you ready to get me started working with you or for you right now? Because that's what I want to do, is get this thing going right now.
All right, perfect. Okay, so I promised he was going to dive deep, right? I mean, we're loving this. We're loving this. So what I want to do now is take a little break. I want to do our mortgage minute. I'm going to bring Irma up here in just a second, and I'd love for everybody to get their questions ready. So our live stream audience, if you have not already, please use the QR code or the phone number that you see hopefully on screen right now to send in your questions. Our Chicago audience, please do the same. And so while Irma comes up and shares her mortgage minute, then we're going to get right into the questions that our agents have so that we can dive deep in answering their very specific questions. So if everybody would help me welcome Miss Irma De Leon to the stage for her mortgage minute.
Thank you, Ashley. Kyle, I absolutely loved your presentation, and one word stood out for me was position. Position. So early on in your career, before you even had this career as a successful listing agent, you positioned yourself, right? You manifested it. You took the steps, the action steps that you needed to take by writing your goals down every single day. So it's no wonder that you're a super success like you are today. So congratulations, and everyone give them a round of applause again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to share with you, we're going to position, I want to make sure that all of you are positioned for a successful 2025. So one of the things that I spoke about last week was about affordability. Early on in my career, I made sure that I didn't listen to the noise. Do you know what I'm talking about the noise? The media, right? The media is feeding all this information out to our consumers. And guess who's the expert? The expert is yourselves. Kyle, we need to make sure that you are disseminating the information or getting the information out there to the clientele. I had, the honor of being able to help clients throughout this whole year with affordability issues. That's through our down payment assistance programs. So ourselves, we have 100% down payment assistance. But then also in the state of Illinois, for my agents here in the Chicagoland area and Illinois, we have what's called the IDA Fund, which will allow us to help our buyers buy homes with minimum down. So you always have a solution to this affordability, but you need to educate yourself. And who can do that for you? Our lenders, your lenders, our loan officers. But you have to take the initiative, just like you took the initiative to make sure that you are well-rounded and just great presentation. You have to be able to do the same thing. So make sure that you take time with your loan officers. If you don't have one, we're happy to align with you, to partner up, and to make sure that you're thriving in 2025. And one of my famous mentors, David Dominguez, I'm looking at him right over here, he once said, the spring market is now. So what you do today is what you'll see when March gets here. And from what I've been seeing, everybody's been really hustling now. So you're going to be successful, but really equip yourself with the information, because you will get those questions from your clientele. And you want to make sure that you're ready. So let's go thrive in 2025. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Irma. Okay, now, if you want to dive deeper with Irma, if you have some more questions for her, please use that QR code. MCA. Use the code MCA so that Irma and her team knows to get in touch with you. Okay, so Kyle, let's dive into the questions. The very first question is about condition. So if you know that there is a condition problem, this agent would love to know really how you step through that and how you kind of tell your client that it's an issue.
Honestly, condition falls under two categories, and it's either you can fix it or you can't. All right. Some conditional items are cosmetic that you have. It could be carpet, it could be paint, it could be holes in the wall, it could be something exterior, rotted wood or something like that. Those things that obviously you can fix. Right? Some conditional items are just a byproduct of the house. It comes with the house, meaning you back up to a major highway, or you have a cell phone tower in your backyard, or things like that. And so you either have to fix them, or you adjust the price to compensate for it. Those are really the only two ways to handle conditional items.
Okay, how about goal setting?
Yep.
I've seen a lot of questions come in because you did talk about personal development being very important to you. And so our agent community would love to know if you have some very specific goals that you set for yourself every single day.
Absolutely. Goal setting is one of the great separators in terms of getting from where you are today to where you want to be. More recently, one of the things that I've been most grateful for is having clarity. I don't think we realize how much of a gift clarity is, especially when you're trying to get somewhere. And so the best thing you can do is be very specific with the goals that you want to set. Once you set those goals, I would encourage you to find what that one big goal is. That you have, that one goal that if this one were to happen, everything else were to fall in line, and focus on that one goal and understand what needs to be done to take care of those goals and what daily habits, because, I'm a big believer in the process, all right? I'm a big believer in understanding that the result that you achieve or that you get is simply a byproduct. So if it's a byproduct, I shouldn't focus on the result. I should focus on what gets me there, right? And so really understanding that if I detach from the result, attach to the process of what I'm trying to achieve day in and day out, inevitably it will happen. You can't give me any example where if you've worked towards something day in and day out, that it didn't happen at some point.
All right. So now our agent community would love to know what the 4 books were that Mark recommended you to read on that very first phone call.
All right. So the 4 books. The 4 books were, one of them was Think and Grow Rich. Another was The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Okay. That book is really an eye-opener because what you come to understand from the compound effect is that you can work every day for 4 months straight and nothing happens. But then on month 5, everything explodes. So it puts you in the mind frame to understand how compound interest works. Daily, and then all of a sudden, boom, it just happens, right? And so that really kind of got me in the mind frame of that. Grant Cardone, 10X Rule is another one that he recommended. And the basis of 10X Rule is that whatever it is that you want to do is going to be 10 times harder than you think. Or it's going to take 10 times more action than you think it's going to take. And then I want to say the 4th book was maybe Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I don't know if he told me that because he was trying to get me to really think about leaving corporate America versus going as a full-time entrepreneur. Now that I think about it, it's like that's probably what he was up to. but yeah, those are the 4 books. But that set me on a course of really diving into personal development, I would encourage anyone to consider attending YouTube University. And the best thing about YouTube University is that it's free. And it's unlimited amount of things that you can do. And so I went through that period when I was writing my goals. You know, I would just drive around. Instead of listening to music, I'm listening to Brian Tracy. I'm listening to Zig Ziglar. I'm listening to Jim Rohn. I'm listening to Eric Thomas, all of these guys. And what started to happen was the things that I was putting in was changing me from the inside, which eventually changed what I seen on the outside, right? And so opportunities and things started to become clear. But I think it's Jim Rohn that has the quote is, you gotta work harder on yourself than you do on your business. That's when you'll start to see things change.
Okay, this next question is about investors. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where investors are looking at your listing and this agent would like to know if there's a way to kind of avoid having wholesalers, conversations with wholesalers about your listing?
I don't think that there's a way to avoid that when your phone number's plastered everywhere. And they're gonna call. And again, you know, what I would encourage, you know, it's kind of like, you know, how I've gotten to the point that I'm at now, right? And guys, I don't think I'm in any specific place. I just know I'm not where I started. That's all I'm trying to say. But the vehicle from getting to that, to getting there was being able to identify moments that happen within conversations. And so if we change our perspective from avoiding having a conversation with this wholesaler to this may not work today, but this may be someone that I do business with in the future, right? Or through that conversation, if I open my mind up to it, there may be something that comes up in that conversation that presents other opportunities that are detached from this particular listing that we have. And so what I would say is, one, you can't avoid the conversation. I think you have it, but I would say maybe open up to it a little bit to, you know, just build a relationship, because you never know, right? You may have a house that you need to let go and you call them for it. So connect with as many people as you can, and that's what I would recommend.
Okay, so when it comes to the listing appointment, this agent would like to know, are you doing the one appointment at their home, and then is there a follow-up appointment to that you're doing maybe at the office, or is your goal really to try and get it all done right there at the home? But if it doesn't happen right then and there, what's the process?
And see, we didn't get into that part of it. So in most cases, I want to try to get that listing appointment. All right, there. I want to make sure both decision makers are there, so that when I ask for the sale, and I do them on my computer now. But one cool thing was that when Mark released me to the wilderness, he gave me the pen that he signed all of his listing agreements with, and I still have that pen, which I thought was pretty cool. You know, and I saw him yesterday, and I talked to him. I said, man, I still got the pen. He asked me about the pen. I said, of course I still got the pen. But which that was cool. He kind of it was like the passing of the mantle, right?
Yes.
Because no one had ever done any of his listings before. I was the first person. I think now he has 2 people, so I've opened the floodgates for him. But at any rate, so we try to get it all done that day, and it doesn't always happen that way. But at that point, it's really about your follow-up. You know, one of the things that we've done after every listing appointment is that, because if you have a team, you'll send a thank you card that comes out pretty much the day you go on an appointment, the thank you card goes out, right? So that's one touch point. But then at that point, you know, we swing back around and we do follow-up calls, but we do not generally go back to the house or have them come in. It's really just a series of calls. You know, and a lot of times, if that doesn't happen, it's because they read Google, and Google told them to interview 3 agents, right? And while you would love to always be the last agent, that's not always the case. So never hesitate to ask to cancel the next agent's appointment. so that they can get you started working for them right now, right? And so I never hesitate to ask, because even if I ask for the sale and I don't get it, or ask for to close and I don't get it, they know they got a closer on their side, right? If you tell me, hey, I can't do this right now because I got other appointments, and I ask you, hey, let me cancel that appointment and let's get started working right now, and the least bit, their last impression of me is, man, that guy's a closer. You see what I'm saying? So, because everything, again, is kind of positioning and, putting yourself in a position to what? To win, right?
Yes. Okay, this agent would like to know if you bring the listing agreement pre-filled.
Yes. Well, the rules have changed. NAR is not in here, right? So yes, we always pre-fill the listing. We pre-fill the listing because, again, it just cuts down on time. The two things that we don't put in there is the price and commission. Price and commission is the only thing that's not in there. But everything else is pre-filled because we're ready to go. Especially if I have both decision makers there, I want to leave out of there with a signed listing agreement.
Okay, so that's a great segue into this question, which is all about commission. And this agent would like to know how you discuss your commission.
Obviously, it's changed a little bit, but it's really not a hard discussion to have. And honestly, I'm actually the one that brings it up. I try not to let the seller bring up the commission discussion, all right? I try to be the one to bring it up because I want to be in control. That's the whole goal, right? It's for me to be in control, because that way I can take it where I need to take it. And so I'm generally going to ask for 6%. And but what I've found what works is giving it to them as a part of the whole process of numbers, right? Meaning, hey, this is what your costs are going to look like. You're going to have about 1.5% are going to go to title costs. You're going to have about 6% that's going to go to commissions. You're going to have buyers. It's not a technical closing cost, but 90% of buyers are going to ask for a home warranty. All right, and so you're going to have about $500 to $700 for home warranty that's in there, and sometimes you might have to pay, and I don't know how you guys work it here, but you may have to pay for HOA fees as well as with the sale. And so are there any questions that you guys have about that? So you had about a total of 7.5% to get your home sold.
Okay, and we had talked about this one before, so I'm glad this agent asked. If they are a new or a less experienced agent than someone like you, what can they do to really build confidence so that they can win that listing?
What I would say is to build confidence, and honestly, I've had agents shadow me. If it's something that you really want, the first thing that you got to do is take away the limiting belief. We are in an information age to where everything is available. I mean, you can literally go on ChatGPT today and type in, and this is how I usually do it, you are a seasoned real estate professional and you would like to teach a class on how to teach agents to win a listing. Now, I didn't do that for this class. Everything that I shared is like from here, right? But it's the golden age of information, right? But what I would say is take away the limiting belief, all right? First, believe that you can do it, all right? Talk to those who have done it, someone that that's close to you that has done it. Ask them, what is it like? What do I need to prepare, right? Don't wait till you have a listing to run numbers. Start running comps now. Like literally pull up a house, drive by a house, write the address down, and run numbers for it. Like it's so simple. You can do that. Ask those that you trust or that trust you, maybe if you can shadow them on a listing, okay? But I would just say, for lack of a better term, fail forward. Just get out there. Do not allow limiting beliefs to hold you back and to stop you. I started with no listings, right? So everybody has to go on their first one. And I think you'll do better than you actually think you will. But a lot of it is just kind of getting rid of any limiting beliefs, but find someone in your market that you can talk to and that may be open to mentoring you.
Okay, so how do you build confidence with the seller if you are newer or less experienced than you are?
A lot of that confidence is going to come from you, really. I mean, that's just the honest truth. It's how you communicate. Do you communicate with confidence, right? You know, if I looked at you and told you it is raining outside, it's a good chance you might get up and go, and let me go check and see, because I've said it with confidence, right? And so how do you deliver the information? Again, I think you have to go, it goes back to working on yourself, because confidence comes from the inside. Confidence is not an outside job. So if you believe that it's going to come from someone else, you're looking in the wrong place. I would say go to the restroom and look in the mirror. That's where the confidence comes from. And really, the confidence comes from your thoughts. How do you think about yourself? What do you believe is true for yourself, right? So if you believe that you can be a listing agent, if you go into that believing that you're going to win this listing, if you go and you visualize where you put the sign at and you prepare, especially the way that I've shown you guys how to prepare, I promise you, you can't lose. You just won't lose, because you're just going to feel so good about yourself that it's just going to come through, right? And so confidence is an inside job.
Okay, there's a couple of questions within this question, so I'm gonna kind of paraphrase. This agent would like to know if someone has expressed that they're not ready to sell for, let's say, 3 to 4 months. Do you still go on the appointment?
Absolutely. I'll always go on an appointment. You tell me you're not ready for 9 months, I'll always go. Because things change rapidly, right? Things change rapidly. For instance, if I go on your listing appointment and you tell me to follow up with you on Friday, I'm probably going to follow up with you between Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm always going to move it up a couple days, right? Because things change quickly. And never miss an opportunity, right, to sit in front of a potential client and showcase your expertise and why they should choose you, right? Because, again, I've been around for a while, and that conversation could go to, hey, you know, my daughter, she's coming home from college. She's graduating. She's starting her job. She may be looking to buy a house soon, right? So if I'm only focused on the result of, hey, I don't want to waste my time and go there and they're not ready for 4 months. But if I go, there is another opportunity that may be presented. And so, again, the vehicle through what we do is about moments and being able to identify those moments and capture them. Just think back about Nicole. If I wouldn't have captured the moment of Nicole telling me Mark Demas is the most amazing person that ever lived, if I would have just let that roll off my timeline, my life would be totally different. Completely different. Everything is different. I still have her, though.
Okay, if they don't sign the agreement right then and there, can you briefly tell us what is your follow-up process?
If they don't sign a listing agreement, the follow-up is, you know, I'll never be a bugaboo. Now, I'll call you, but I won't be so thirsty, right? Obviously, I want the business. But again, if they say, hey, follow up with me on Friday, I'm probably going to follow up on Wednesday, right? Unfortunately, they probably talk to their mother, their neighbor, their cousin, and Bob at Home Depot, who says he knows a guy, right? And so those conversations happen all the time, which change what happens from your conversation. So I'm always going to move that timeline up. I'm going to follow up with them, give them a call. If they say, hey, now is not the time, when is a better time for me to give you a call? But I'll always also ask them, hey, is there, you know, anything that you had questions about? And that's usually what my follow-up call or question is. Hey, I just wanted to touch base. It's been a few days, you know, since we met. Did you have any questions now that you've had some time to sleep on it about our appointment? And that's how it goes. And again, but they've already gotten a thank you card, right? I followed up with them to see if they had any questions. And then if that day doesn't work, I'm going to follow up again. I'm going to say, hey, when is a better time for me to call? And then it's a process that keeps going on and on. And so But again, I did the work up front to understand, what's the timeline that you're looking for selling? What's your motivation? Is the motivation strong? Are you wanting to sell because you saw your neighbor your cousin and neighbor in another community sold their house for $100,000 more than what they bought it for? Or are you selling because of divorce? Or are you guys building a new home? Or was there a death in the family? Or was this your mom's home and they now had to move on? So that's why it's important to do that work up front, because it's going to make everything on the backside so much easier.
Mm-hmm. That leads beautifully into this next question, which is, what if someone says, I want to wait until the spring market?
That's fine. I'll still be doing real estate in the spring market. All right. And that's usually how I respond. I'll still be doing real estate in the spring market. But at that point, what I need to do is, let them know, if you're wanting to sell in the spring market, it's a good time for us to probably revisit this is probably about January. Because again, if you tell me Friday, I'm calling Wednesday. If you tell me March, I'm following up in January. I'm moving everything up by 2. I don't know why I do it that way. I just do it that way, right? So I'm moving everything up by 2 because I want to make sure I get in between any opportunities for someone else to come and jump in the middle of that if I can, right? So if they want to wait, look, it's your right to wait. Just know I'll be ready when you're ready. And oh, by the way, what I can do is I can set you up on what we call a market insight report, okay? What that market insight report is going to do is going to come to you on a weekly or a monthly basis. It's just going to keep you abreast of what similar homes are selling for in your community, where you can stay ahead of what's going on with pricing. So at that point, I have to find something of value that I can give you to keep us connected.
Okay, so speaking of pricing, this agent would love for you to revisit the conversation that we had earlier about if you find yourself in a situation where the potential client gives a number that is just totally overpriced. And they are really not willing to move off of that number. Okay. How do you handle that situation?
So it's a couple of different ways that you can handle that situation. All right. Again, I would always choose the route with the most transparency possible. And when I talk about transparency, you are clear that I disagree with your price. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, I would not recommend that. But it's not because of what I think, it's about what the market is showing us. And this is why, all right? So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is I have to determine if I want to take on that listing. Because if they agree to adjust, great. We can go ahead and do it. But if I do take that listing, can I do open houses from it? If I do open houses, now can I door knock the 20 doors nearest the property? If I door knock the 20 doors nearest the property, can I get another listing? Can I find another buyer, right? Is this an opportunity now, especially if it's a nice listing, does it give me an opportunity to create social media content from this listing? Guys, your sign in the yard is your greatest advertising tool. That's what we all want. We want our sign in the yard, right? At the open house, and I put signs out. If I get anybody driving in, they don't know it's overpriced. They just drive by, oh, let's go look at this house. That's a potential buyer that can come into the open house, right? And so again, perspective is the mother of all, right? And so if I'm transparent with them and I let them know, hey, I don't agree with it, but I will tell you guys, if I do take it on, I do tell them, look, we're going to do everything we can to get your home sold. Just understand the market always responds, but we're going to do what we can to get this home sold at this price. And if it doesn't, we'll have a conversation within about 3 weeks about making an adjustment if no one's coming in to look at the home, because I've already set that expectation. So because I've already set the expectation without any stress or anxiety attached to it, it's easy to revisit the conversation, which is where I think some agents, not all, especially some that are inexperienced, that haven't been in that situation, they go wrong at is by not setting that proper expectation. So it's a tough conversation to have, especially with a D personality. if you have a D personality and it's someone that's just like, I want it, whatever you got to do to get it, don't give me no excuses, sometimes that's a hard conversation to have with that person, right? But that's why it's important to, one, understand who you're dealing with up front, and then set those expectations through the process. Did I answer that question? I think so.
Yeah, and that leads perfectly into this next question about pricing.
I'm on a roll.
So I know, right? You are. You're crushing it. You are crushing it. So this agent would like to know, when you're asking that question, to your potential client, so do you have a price in mind? If they respond in somewhat of a sassy way, and if they say something like, well, you're the expert, why don't you tell me? How do you handle that situation?
And that's happened. That's happened before. But again, it's confidence. I've already done my numbers. I already know my numbers, right? And so without any time in between, I rattle off what I'm thinking and I'm explaining why. And so if they have that response, hey, absolutely. Look, I've already done the numbers. We've looked at it. I'll walk through your home. So this is the price that I would suggest. And I say it with confidence. And I look them in the eyes. Guys, looking people in the eyes when you're talking about their home and you're talking about pricing and you're talking about commission. If somebody asks about confidence, that's where it comes from. Like, you got to believe in what you're saying and that you're the person that's best fit to serve them. Like, and you have to. But if you don't say it with confidence, they're not going to have confidence that you can get it done. Again, because it's not a front for not doing the work. The work is done. At that point, I'm just kind of positioning myself to see, are we on the same page, or am I going to have to work you? Because, part of the reason I'll do that is, let's just say they don't sign a listing agreement, and I never knew that they thought that they could sell their home for $500,000, and I just told them, look, the market is about $435,000, $445,000. They may not call me back because there's a feeling that they have about that. So what I'm trying to do is have that tough conversation now. Like, if we have not even a disagreement, but if we're on a different path in terms of numbers, I'd rather talk to you about that in person than after the fact. I always would have wished I knew up front, because obviously it's happened to me before. So I say, you know what? I'm gonna make sure I can have this conversation now versus later when some other agent is gonna come in and say, oh, you wanna sell it for that? Yeah, we can do it. No, they're not gonna serve you. They're not gonna serve you the right way.
Okay, so I could keep going. The inbox is flooded with questions. You have done,
Is it really?
It is.
That warms my heart.
Absolutely. So
I didn't know if nobody was gonna watch.
This has been such a beautiful time together, and so I want to share with everybody. Hopefully our team will put up, for our virtual audience, they'll put up a QR code to your Instagram page. We want everybody to DM Kyle any questions that you have, as well as his magic sheets. He has 2 of them, so definitely DM to ask him to send you that information. He would love to do that. And I want to really wrap all of this up with one final question, which is, what do you hope that everyone here today in our Chicago audience, everybody in our virtual audience, takes from what you shared today?
Absolutely. One of the first things I want everybody to understand is that, I've said it already, confidence is an inside job. I think the sooner that you realize that, the sooner that you understand that the way that how much you believe in yourself and the way that you see yourself will allow you to forge paths that you never knew existed. If you listen to my story, I know it's not a lot of hoorah in my story, but it's one of understanding how to identify moments, right? And understanding that these little moments, whether big or small, become momentum. That momentum is what gets us to the opportunities, right? So you got to learn how to dial in to these little moments that happen to take you to the momentum, which will push you towards the opportunities that are out there. Guys, we're in a time where opportunities are limitless. And last, I would like to make sure everyone understands is that we all have within us a superpower. Mm-hmm. And that superpower is intention. Mm-hmm. Everyone has it. If any one of you guys were to think back at any point in life about something that you wanted, whether you were in the grocery store with your parents, whether there was a pair of shoes you wanted for school. There's not anything in your life that you haven't gotten that you haven't wanted bad enough. And that, my friends, is why I say intention is your superpower.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so as we wrap up today, I hope everybody is going to be intentional about showing up every single Friday right here with our live audience here in Chicago, our virtual audience. We're here every single Friday, 11 a.m. Central. Please follow us on our Instagram page, America's Real Estate Show, as well as our YouTube channel so that you can find out who we have coming up next. I will give you a sneak peek. Next week, we have a rock star, literally a rock star turned real estate superstar, and he is going to talk all about social media and how to completely crush it on social media. So you do not want to miss next Friday. So I would love for everybody to give another huge round of applause to Kyle. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. All right.
Absolutely phenomenal job. And I know we're going to be signing off here soon with our virtual audience. And so for everybody here in Chicago, we'd love for you to meet us up on stage for pictures afterwards. And we have something special that we're going to do as well. So if you would hang out, come to the front, and we're going to do some photos. All right, you guys, let's turn up the music and have a good time.
Done. Huh? Good. Hey,